slim pickings, I'm afraid. I'm just waiting for things to come in that I can use for shows. Try to think of things that would be appropriate for this time of year. Dry January, I mean, come on, please. I know that some people like to do it. I don't mind people doing dry January. It makes kind of sense, especially with lockdown and everything, and people drinking probably to excess, probably more than ever this year because they've been at home just boozing it up. And it's cheaper to drink at home, so generally I think you probably tend to drink more if you're with groups. But we weren't with groups, were we? No. But dry January, that's fine. You might want to have a detox, but don't be asking people for money to stop you drinking. All this, you know, it's one thing to run 26 miles and ask somebody to provide some money to your charity, but it's not clever just to stop drinking asking people for money. Also, we're in a situation where, because of the severe tier 5 plus lockdown that we're under now, we don't really have the excuse of saying, well, you could be supporting your local pub, it's not fair. But bear in mind the hospitality industry is dying, and we're not getting the support that we need. All sorts of things are going on right now. I put out a post today on Instagram saying, who's with me? Dry July? Didn't think so. You know, that's when you're on holiday getting drunk again. So as long as it's convenient, then make it look like you're being righteous. It just makes me sick. So there we go. The best thing to do, by the way, is to drink in moderation all the time. Not that I can say that I do that either. But you know what? You know, don't practice what you preach. Just tell people what the right thing to do is. Okay, so what we have here are some very interesting drinks. All lowercase Vinesack, all lowercase Drinkscapes UK. You are watching the Drinkscapes UK on YouTube. Press the bell, subscribe for other updates and notifications of other shows as they come up. Yeah, look, the whole idea of this channel is to explore the unexplored and to do things which most consumers at home wouldn't normally try. And this is where we're at now. Okay, so we have, I'm looking at the screen, which shows the frame up, and I'm seeing the drinks we've got here. And we're looking at some really exciting drinks today. And I wasn't sure what to call this, whether I was going to call it Aperitivo, the unexplored joy of drinking. Because it's now terribly fashionable to drink vermouths and aperitivos. So I think we're going to sort of like subtitle this show, cool shit that you didn't know was cool, that you probably should be drinking, but you're not. Okay? Thank you, Gavin McGowan, again, for a wonderful contribution. I did mention him a couple of times on recent shows, especially on the spirit shows. He was very kind to donate some Armagnac and some Calvados this Christmas. So you'll remember me mentioning Gavin's name. Gavin is a stalwart encyclopedia of hardcore hip-hop, good drum and bass, and fine drinking. And what do we have here? Well, we've got 3 aperitifs, that's French for aperitif, and aperitivo, 2 aperitivo, which is Italian for aperitif, Italian for aperitivo, whatever. Okay, I have 5 glasses. Each has a cube of ice in. I feel like a campanologist. Yes. Okay. So what do we have here? Yes. The idea of aperitivos. Aperitivos are supposed to be a drink that you drink before dinner, which unlock your appetite, which make you hungry, which make you appreciate your food more. Something the French and the Italians and the Spanish are very, very familiar with. If you're going to go out to Barcelona, you go out to the Born or something like that, to the old town in Barcelona, before you go out and have a fabulous tapas crawl, for example. You might start your evening off in a champagnera, in a carver bar, or you might go to a vermouth bar and drink vermouth, as they call it, and maybe have a couple of beers. And then before you know it, you're gagging for something to eat, and you really appreciate that food, and everything just seems to be better value. Everything's just more satisfying. And I think it's something that in this country we're very poor at. You know, when we think, oh, I'm hungry, we go to McDonald's or we go to get a ready meal out and stick it in the microwave. You know, I think the build up to a meal, including the use of alcohol in this case, can actually help to digest the food. It can help you feel slightly less sort of crazy about eating the calories. So you don't eat so fast because you're enjoying your food more. I think it's just something that we could learn from our European compatriots. Now we're no longer a part of Europe. Okay, so what do we have here? We have 3 drinks from a wonderful, wonderful estate, a wonderful producer, which I'll just show you at the back. It's called Distillerie et Domaine de Provence. It's like a group of producers which produce all sorts of wonderful things. And this all comes from a distillery, a drinks producer, which is famous particularly for an absinthe, or also a pastis called Henri Bardouin. Henri Bardouin you can buy in Waitrose. It's handmade and it's rather stunning. It's delicious. It's 45% alcohol, which is the same as Ricard, which is kind of the other great, I suppose, pastis of the region in the south of France. Although Ricard comes from Marseille, Henri Bardouin comes from a bit further north, Valcaquier. If you drew a line from Marseille to Grenoble in the Rhone Alp, it's about halfway along there. So just north of Provence, just north of the Côte d'Ivoire, just north of the Var. Just, I suppose it's about an hour's drive from Marseille for going north, maybe less. More like 35, 40 minutes, I guess, depending on the roads you take. So we have 3 drinks here which are made of that producer, which are stunning and wonderful. And when you start realising these drinks exist, you start going, I wonder what else is out there. This is really exciting. So I'm really, really keen to show you these drinks. Also, Gavin also sent me this because he knows I love it so much, which is something I'll come on to, which is kind of a bit of a chimera between vermouth, which will be a whole other show. I think possibly 2 shows on vermouth, because it takes that much to really explain it properly without it making it sound complicated. Like when I did sherry and like when I did port, if you break it down into manageable, digestible chunks, then vermouth isn't so threatening. But there are all sorts of ways of making vermouth. The ways they've been made and the styles that they're in are varied and full, all with their own merits. And I think I should tackle that with some sensitivity. But we're going to taste this drink because it's really in the Aperitivo camp, because it's a mix of vermouth and a bitters, which I'll explain in a minute. And then right at the end, Luca, finally get to just talk specifically about your drink. This drink goes incredibly well with my favourite drink up here, Reverend Hubert. Yes, it's still on the market. You can still buy it. Winter's not over yet. In fact, winter hasn't started yet. When it gets all snowy and cold, you'll be thanking me. Get your Reverend Hubert from Whiskey Exchange, from Master of Malt, from your local supermarket, Marks and Spencer's, if you're inside the M25, or in fact buy it from us at thereverendhubert.com. www.reverendhubert.com, and it makes the most wonderful warm drinks. If you were watching this Christmas Sunday Christmas brunch, turns out it's Gary Barlow's favourite drink now. He bought 6 bottles. We actually delivered to him. It turns out he's a local, so Gary Barlow loves this stuff, amongst other super celebrities. Simon Rimmer loved it too, who's a dear friend of mine. Put it in a pot. If you make a pot of Earl Grey tea, and you pour in a large shot of that, squeeze of lemon and some honey, you got the perfect winter toddy, basically. Absolutely delicious. Or as Pritish Modi did from World of Zing on the show on Sunday brunch for Christmas, he mixed it with hot cranberry juice with different citrus rinds in it, and a little bit of Oloroso sherry, which was another masterstroke. Absolutely delicious drink. So lots you can do with that whole thing. Back to the business at hand. Let's start with this. Isn't that beautiful? Imagine you're in France. Imagine it's not quite as cold as this, or at least when it's sunny outside, it can still be cold, right? I love it when it's sunny and cold. What a beautiful bottle. Isn't that beautiful? It's kind of a slightly sort of pre-Raphaelite Fantasy Eclat bottle. I think nicer than that. I'm not a big Holman Hunt fan, if I'm honest. But this is a lovely French label, beautifully written. Okay, let's give it the benefit of the doubt and call it Renoir-esque or something. And it's called Absenteroux. I love that. Vermouth à l'absinthe. So this is a vermouth mixed with absinthe. Absinthe, what is absinthe? Absinthe is a pastis type drink, which is a spirit, which has been distilled from and made with aniseed. And if it's green and it's an absinthe, it will have had toujaune and wormwood and all sorts of other herbs added to it to make it very fragrant. A vermouth, before I go on to the subject in further shows, is a flavoured fortified wine. It's almost always fortified, whether the drink is fortified and then steeped in herbs, or whether they make a tincture out of steeping herbs in a spirit and then adding that to a wine with sugar. There are many, many ways of doing it. But look at the colour, look at the packaging. I think you're looking at sort of like around the £25 mark if you buy this online. Also, absinthe might scare you. I mean, there was all these stories about absinthism and people getting addicted to absinthe and it making you trip. Not sure most of those stories are true. Absinthism was definitely true, and although absinthe was created in France for the first time, it was also banned in France for the first time because they had people, absinthe drinkers in Paris, like the gin drinkers of London, just getting hammered all day and all night on absinthe. It's not because it's addictive, by the way, it's because it was very high strength. Some of them were 70% pure alcohol. You mix that with some melted sugar and you drink it. You're taking huge amounts of alcohol in, and of course that creates a rush, and that rush becomes addictive. So now there are rules. You can't have a certain amount of the active ingredient, which is touchone, in it, but the limit to, if you drink a drink that's got up to the limit, is still perfectly fine. And I don't know anyone who's ever come to any harm drinking absinthe, although I did read about a kid once who went on a skiing trip and bet all his mates he couldn't drink a whole bottle of absinthe in one and died. Well, I'm just thinking that he probably removed himself from the gene pool, so congratulations to him. These are all such wonderful drinks. We'll just take them one by one. Again, this particular manufacturer is in Forcalquier. Forcalquier is an area of the northern Provence or Rhone Alps, southern Rhone or high altitude Rhone, where all sorts of wonderful things are grown. Wonderful lavender, wonderful flowers, wonderful herbs for all sorts of purposing, but very famous for growing and producing things which are used in the French perfumery industry, not least peaches, which are from a valley nearby, very famous peaches, which we'll come on to in a moment, because this is the most famous of these three drinks, and deservedly so. But let's go back to Absenteroux. So there's a vermouth which has absinthe in it. It's kind of the colour of green chartreuse, very pretty wine drink. Beautifully balanced, not crazy alcoholic. It's only 18%. A little sip like that goes a long way. Like I said, this show's about stuff that you might want to try, even if you're kind of doing a semi-dry January. Maybe a little sip of this, and maybe a beer with dinner, and you just call it a day. But these drinks really do enliven watching Pointless before dinner. Gives you something interesting to talk about. And I think these drinks are so magically delicious and so complex that the world is really missing a trick not drinking them. Am I right, Gav? Yes, I'm right. Shout out to Dean Callan, super bartender who has his own bartendering show from his own studio in his shed in his garden. Dean, you did a great show on these with Gavin. And I agree 100% with you. These are drinks of rare quality and speciality. A beautiful balance. I think what specialise, what really stands out here, and what stands out often in really, really fine French aperitif, is the balance. They're just sweet enough, they're just bitter enough, they're just alcoholic enough. Great form. Well, that's number one. Absenteroux. Very much looking forward to drinking that with my wife. In many servings, not in one go. This isn't wine. It is sweet, but the bitterness and the astringency of the drink is balanced by all its herbs and everything else. Bring us on to this. This is a bartender's like secret weapon, trade secret. Most people aren't told about this. It's only 15% alcohol. Rinquinquin à la Pêche. Rinquinquin means to have a good old booze up, a good old chinwag with your mates. When I was in Bordeaux, even in Bordeaux and also in Occitanie, down in places like Carcassonne, you find people saying "Je vais rinquinquin avec mes amis," which means I'm going off to the bar to shoot a couple of absinthe and have a chat with my mates. Usually a vigorous discussion of sorts. And rinquinquin means a bit of a natter. Okay, and it's a phrase that I've actually heard people colloquially using in France. It does exist. It's not old French. It's modern French, but a dialect that's often not heard by people who just read French at school. Rinquinquin, a natter. Rinquinquin à la Pêche. This is made from peaches. Oh my God, this is wonderful. It's made from a white wine. I don't know what the grape variety would be there. It could be any one of the Provençal white varieties. I imagine it's probably Roll or Vermentino, as it's called, which is the most popular white variety in that region. What they do is they actually steep the peaches, chopped peaches, and the leaves in a mixture of spirit and wine. What they do is that extracts certain aromatics from each of them, so then they can rebuild, like a perfumier would, construct a drink which has both the smell, the taste, the balance, the herbiness of the final resulting product, which is incredibly delicate, but it's so pure peach, it's just wonderful. The liquid essence, the tinctures that come out in the wine are then mixed in, and then the solid pomace that's left behind of all the mush of all the peaches and the leaves is redistilled, and then they make a tincture and they add it. So this is a very lightly fortified white wine, 15% alcohol. It's quite pale in colour. It is the colour of peach skin, I guess, somewhere between white peach and yellow peach. Oh man, it's so amazing. I wish there was more of this, Gav, but thanks for letting me have it in the first place. Oh God, if you like peaches, just go Whiskey Exchange, go online. It's like 25 quid or something, £22 or something. It's not crazy money, but this is just, you know, it's something you can drink in tiny little sips, just little sips on the veranda in the sunshine when it's cold outside with a scarf on. Oh God, this is so delicious. Okay, so smell of herbs, smell of a warm, almost like tin of cleat peaches inside a baked Alaska. So there's a smell of cooked peach, there's a smell of fresh peach, and there's a smell of the leaves and the freshness of a peach grove. And there's tannin. There's some dryness. Although there's sugar in here, it doesn't ostensibly feel like it's a sweet drink. If anything, it's demi-sec. I imagine there's more sugar in here than there appears to be. And I imagine that some of the leaves and some of the extract and some of the skin material from the peaches reins that in by adding tannin, a dryness factor. So texturally, it tastes quite dry. Quite delicious. Now, the next drink, a drink I didn't know about until I watched the Dean Callan show when Gavin went on it, is this. Now, you might have heard of Nocello. People make it in Italy. And I imagine that people make this kind of thing all over Europe. But this is a drink called Noix de la Saint-Jean. Noix de la Saint-Jean is a liqueur aperitif made from walnuts. Now, I promised Gavin I would use this on my port show at the end as an alternative to port, which would have been a brilliant idea, because it's the most wonderfully satisfying drink, very sweet, but it has the taste of walnuts. And when you're drinking tawny port, walnuts and those sort of things go terribly well. One of the problems about walnuts is if you actually drink this drink out of a normal crystal glass, you don't wash the glass properly, the glass smells like corked wine, because corked wine smells of walnut skins. So it is something that you really want to keep a set of glasses especially for your aperitivos and your sugary drinks, because it doesn't do well to pour wine over it. It just tastes corked, which is very strange because in of itself, this stuff is absolutely magnificent and delicious. It's also been spiced slightly. This drink has had nutmeg added to it. It's had clove added to it. Again, the region is very famous actually for Muscat, which is a great variety, Muscat Saint-Jean, and also clearly famous for walnuts. It seems that every country in Europe, whether it's Spain, Portugal, they all say, oh, you have these famous walnuts and the greatest walnuts in the world. Well, very few people really have a strong claim to that, but I imagine these guys have a decent one. Now look at the colour. It's got a gorgeous kind of russet red to it. It looks quite dark and black in situ. It looks like a dark coffee liqueur, I guess, in colour. But there is a definite hue of auburn, chestnut hair or something. Well, I'll tell you what, the nutmeg comes through, or the mace flavours come through, along with the clove kind of first. And then you have that dry, cedary tang of the skin of a walnut. In this country, we have these things, which are wonderful, and I always get through nearly a whole jar at Christmas, but not quite the whole jar. Come from Kent. OP's, pickled walnuts. Who likes? I bet there's people out there going, oh man, yes, OP's pickled walnuts. Unusual, but they're picked before they would go hard, so they're still green. And they're soaked, and they're quite sharp, and they taste absolutely wonderful. And Gavin said, instead of drinking tawny port with my Stilton this Christmas, I should drink a glass of Noix de la Saint-Jean. And he's right, because I was having it with a pickled walnut, a bit of cheddar, some celery, and there are celery notes in this drink too. Wow, this is a drink. I imagine it's similar money to Rinquinquin à la Pêche. Wow. That's a drink you can really surprise someone with. Guys, gals out there, anybody looking for something different, you're bored of the Christmas classics, go for something like this, because these are classics in their own right. Not that you'd know about them. Go and try them. So it's Absenteroux, Rinquinquin à la Pêche, Noix de la Saint-Jean, walnut liqueur. Fantastic. 3 beautiful aperitifs from one of the finest producers of alcoholic drinks, not just in France, but probably in the whole world, making the world's finest pastis. Sandra, I know you're watching this, you're going, no, it's Ricard. Well, you know, everyone has to beg to differ, and I think in terms of balance and complexity, Henri Bardois has it. Although I find Ricard easier to drink, so sue me. Pastis 51, that's for the peasants. Pernod for the ladies. A bit sweet, not strong enough. But if you're serious about your pastis, you drink Ricard. If you're a real aficionado and you drink too much, Henri Bardois your man. Thank you, Gavin. Last drink from Gavin, though. This is from Boulevard Nardini. Now, the Nardini distillery is famous for what is the most famous premium grappa in Italy, called Bassano grappa. And this is a wonderful drink. It says distilleria alla vapore, which means that it percolates. Like, it's a distillery like a London gin distillery, where you don't put stuff into the liquid when you distill it. They put it into what they call a carter head, and they put it into a muslin sack with all your botanicals in, and then the steam of the alcohol goes through this basket and then comes out the other side aromatized, taking all the essential oils with it. And that's what this means, distilleria a vapore. These guys are famous for making the most wonderful vermouth. You must have heard of Martini Rosso or Cinzano Rosso, maybe the classic Torino Rosso, which is Cocci. These are very, very famous red aromatized sweet wines and fortified sweet wines. I wish I had the bottle here. I cannot find it, but there's a new drink on the block. Do check it out. Look it up. Search for it. Boxer, B-O-X-E-R. It's an ethically produced gin, but they've brought out a bottle of Boxer Negroni, pre-mixed Negroni. Utterly delicious. And guess what? When you read the back, I discovered they use this red vermouth in that Negroni. But this isn't vermouth. This is vermouth mixed with something else. You'll see that the name is Il Mezzoemezzo, the half and half. Great name. You can buy this online. It's a whole litre, 40 quid, but it goes a long way, trust me. Liquore Aperitivo, it's 22% alcohol. You get enough bang for your buck out of that. What is it? Well, it's a cross between a red vermouth and a drink that is quite hard to find if you don't know where to find it from here. And these guys have been making it since the late 18th century. But there's also a producer and a brand called Zucca. Z-U-C-C-A. And Zucca is also a brand of what is called a Rabarbaro. Rabarbaro is a cordial, it's a bitters, it's a sweet fortified drink, just like these are, made with rhubarb. So it's basically an aperitivo rhubarb drink mixed half and half with a red vermouth. The reason why they make it pre-mixed is because it became so famous as a drink together that they, well, fuck it, we'll just sell it mixed already. So this is Il Mezzoemezzo. I love rhubarb. I know a lot of people out there don't. If you look at the colour of it, it looks like Ponte Mess, which, and again, is a drink which people think is vermouth, but actually is a mix between vermouth and bitter. Ponte Mess, 1.5, and it's a pre-mix basically. But if you ever come across those kind of drinks, Antica Formula is another drink made by the people at Carpano. Good colour. Make no mistake, when I whiff this, I'm thinking that I had the box of gin Negroni recently. There's a lot of wormwood in here, a lot of vermouth. Wormwood, that's where the name comes from. When you taste it, there's a percolation of sweet red rhubarb coming up through it. If you serve that over ice, splash of soda, just a splash mind, a big wedge of lovely ripe orange, it makes the perfect aperitivo. Or ombra, if you're in Venice. Ombra is a drink that you have just as the shadows start appearing on the buildings, because the buildings are so close together. And ombra is a very Venetian expression or certainly North Italian expression for an aperitivo, a drink you have before you start scoffing all those lovely tramezzini and also the other foods you have. So, I'm at the 25-minute mark. I didn't think I could take that much time to drink these drinks, but they are wonderful, and you all really ought to try them. Finishing off with this. This is a drink which was kind of a rediscovery, the regeneration of a drink that was virtually extinct. It says Rosolio. Now, Rosolio is a cordiale. It's a cordial. It's a sweet liquorous wine, liquorous drink, which was made from rose petals. Yes, indeed. So Rosolio is a rose petal scented aperitivo again. But you'll also see it says Rosolio di Bergamotto. And if you haven't had bergamot, brew yourself a cup of good old-fashioned English Earl Grey tea. And that wonderful perfume comes from the citrus rind of a citrus fruit that comes from Italy, which is the most wonderfully aromatic skin. The contents of the bergamot are so sour, in fact, that it can almost give you a burn in the mouth. They're very, very, very sour, very high acid. But for the very short period they're available, which is about 6 weeks before Christmas, bergamots are the most wonderful citrus to put in your gin and tonic and so forth. And some premium gins use it as one of their botanicals. So what's this taste like? I'll just drink the water out of that glass. My wife has fallen in love with this stuff. Thank you, Luca, for the sample. You can either... Oh, God, that smells good. You can either drink this half and half with my buddy Reverend. So you go 40 mils, 40 mils, 20 mils of lemon juice, shake over ice, strain into a glass. And you have a wonderful kind of winter-styled, bringing you spring aromas of roses and citrus. And then you got the spice of the Reverend Hubert. You end up with this like kind of pre-spring, wonderful martini-style drink. Or you can just drink it like this. Or it's wonderful, by the way, in Prosecco. Just pour a tiny measure, 10 mils, 2 bar spoons into a glass of Prosecco. Fantastic. The roses and everything come out. Oh my God, that smells good. Right. And so, Emma at Christmas, I saw her supping this in a little glass, and I caught her like a little squirrel hiding something away. Thank you, Tom, for these. The greatest chocolates in the world. These are Fortnum Mason's milk and dark chocolate rose and violet creams. And I saw her munching on a dark chocolate rose cream from Fortnum's while sipping this. She said, have a go, and I tasted it, and wow, what an explosion. They should serve a little chocolate next to this in a bar. It'd be fantastic. I did get COVID nearly a year ago now, and one thing that I have discovered, and it's not uncommon, is I can't smell violets anymore. Here are some violet liqueurs, which I've actually opened, smelled and tasted. Just taste of sugar. Here's actually violet sugar. I've tried that. Parma violets, you know how strong they smell? Can't smell them. This is one of the symptoms of COVID. I do hope I get past it, because violets are a smell I quite like in wine, and I'm rather missing it at the moment. So, Absenteroux, Rinquinquin à la Pêche, Noix de la Saint-Jean, from Forcalquier, from the Henri Bardouin distillery, from Nardini, Mezzoemezzo, and then from my friend Luca Misilio, who's the brand ambassador out there, Italicus, Rosolio di Bergamotto. See you next time.